The night was cold in Winterfell, but the air felt even colder inside the great hall. The torches burned low, and their shadows danced along the stone walls like silent witnesses to something big. Ned Stark stood near the long wooden table, his face serious, his grey eyes filled with worry. Beside him, Catelyn Stark held her hands together tightly, as if trying to keep her fear from showing. Outside, the wind howled across the north. Winter was not just coming, it was already there. Robb Stark stood in front of them. He was young, only a boy in the eyes of many lords, but tonight he did not look like a boy. He looked like a wolf learning to lead the pack. His red-brown hair fell across his forehead, and his blue eyes were steady, though his heart was racing. Ned finally spoke. "The realm is breaking, Robb." Robb swallowed. He had heard whispers for days. The king in the south was sick. The Lannisters were gaining power. Lords were choosing sides. War was not far away. "But you are the warden of the north, father," Robb said quietly. "The realm looks to you." Ned's face tightened. "And that is the problem." Catelyn stepped forward. "Your father has been called to King's Landing again. The king demands his presence, and this time it feels different." Robb felt a chill. He knew what King's Landing did to honorable men. It swallowed them whole. Ned looked at his son in a way he never had before, not as a child, but as a man. "If I go south, I may not return quickly. The realm is fragile. The north must stay strong." Robb's voice was steady, but inside he felt the weight of a mountain. "What are you asking of me?" Catelyn answered softly. "We are entrusting Winterfell and the north to you." The words hung heavy in the air. Robb's breath slowed. He had always trained for battle. He knew how to hold a sword. But ruling, that was different. That meant judging men, sending men to war, deciding who lives and who dies. "Why me?" Robb asked. "Uncle Benjen serves the Night's Watch," Ned interrupted, "and your brothers are too young." "You are my heir. The North must see strength. They must see Stark blood leading them." Robb walked to the window and looked out at the snow-covered courtyard. He remembered running there as a boy, laughing with Jon and Theon. Those days felt far away now. "The Lannisters will test us," Ned continued. "They think the North is weak. They think a young wolf cannot bite." Robb turned slowly, his jaw tightened. "Then let them come." Catelyn saw something in her son's eyes that made her both proud and afraid. Pride because he looked strong. Fear because strength often brings war. Ned placed a hand on Robb's shoulder. "Honor will guide you. Always remember that. A Stark does not lie. A Stark does not betray. The North trusts us because we are just." But Robb hesitated. What if honor is not enough? For a moment, silence filled the room. Ned did not answer quickly. In truth, he did not know. Far to the south, in the shining towers of King's Landing, men played games with gold and poison. Honor was often crushed there. "Then you must be smarter than your enemies," Catelyn said quietly. "Watch everyone." There was a knock at the door. Maester Luwin entered, bowing his head. "My lord, a raven has arrived from the Eyrie." Catelyn's face turned pale. The Eyrie meant her sister, and trouble. Ned gestured for the letter. He read it quickly, his expression darkening. "What is it?" Robb asked. Ned folded the parchment slowly. "The Lannisters are gathering forces in the west. Tywin Lannister moves quietly, but not quietly enough." The name itself felt like a warning. Tywin Lannister was not a man who moved without purpose. Robb felt anger rise in his chest. "They think they can threaten us. They think we will not act," Ned said. "They believe the North is too far, too divided, too slow." Robb stepped closer to the table and placed his hands firmly on it. Then we show them they are wrong." Catelyn looked at her husband. This was the moment. The boy was gone. A leader was forming. Ned nodded slowly. "Very well. From this day you will call the banners if needed. You will sit in judgment. You will rule in my name." Robb's heart pounded. "I will not fail you." Ned's eyes softened. "Do not rule for me. Rule for the North." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. That night, as Robb lay awake in his chamber, he stared at the ceiling and thought about what was coming. He could feel it like a storm on the horizon. The lions would roar. The wolves would answer. But what no one knew yet was that the realm was not just breaking. It was about to burn. And Robb Stark, still only a boy in years, was about to stand at the center of it all. Morning came to Winterfell with a pale grey sky. Snow covered the ground like a silent warning. The castle looked calm from the outside, but inside everything had changed. Servants walked faster. Guards stood straighter. Whispers filled the halls. Robb Stark woke before sunrise. He had barely slept. The words of his father still echoed in his mind. "You will rule in my name." He dressed slowly, wearing a dark leather tunic with the direwolf sigil on his chest. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he did not see the boy who used to laugh in the yard. He saw someone carrying a heavy burden. Down in the great hall, the northern lords had gathered. Lord Umber, tall and loud. Lord Karstark, quiet but sharp-eyed. Lord Mormont's representative stood firm like a bear ready to strike. They all looked at Robb when he entered. For a second, the silence felt too heavy. Then Maester Luwin spoke. "Robb Stark, acting Lord of Winterfell. Acting Lord." The words sounded strange. Robb walked to his father's seat and paused. Sitting there meant power. It also meant responsibility. Slowly, he sat down. Lord Umber was the first to speak. "We hear the Lannisters gather men. Is it true?" Robb did not hesitate. "It is." Murmurs spread across the hall. Lord Karstark leaned forward. "And what does your father command?" Robb held his gaze steady. "My father has entrusted the North to me while he answers the king's call. Until he returns, I command." Some faces showed surprise. Others showed doubt. He noticed it. "They think I am too young." Lord Umber crossed his arms. "War is not a game for boys." The words were sharp. Some men shifted uncomfortably. Robb stood up slowly. His voice was calm but firm. "No, my lord, war is not a game. That is why we must prepare before it reaches our doors." The room grew quiet again. He continued, "The Lannisters believe the North is slow, that we will argue while they gather strength. They believe we are divided." He let his eyes move across the hall. "Are we divided?" A deep voice answered first. "No, it was Great Gon Umber. Then others joined." "No." Robb nodded. "Then we send a message, call the banners, quietly. We prepare, but we do not strike first." Lord Karstark narrowed his eyes. "You speak carefully." "I speak wisely," Robb replied. "If we rush south without proof, we look like rebels. But if they strike first, he let the sentence hang. Then the North answers with fire." Lord Umber finished, a small grin on his face. Catelyn watched from the side of the hall. Her heart beat with both fear and pride. Robb sounded like his father. But there was something else, too. A quicker mind. A sharper edge. After the meeting ended, Robb stepped outside into the cold air. The snow crunched under his boots. He saw Theon Greyjoy leaning against a wall, smiling in that careless way of his. "So," Theon said, "Lord of Winterfell now?" "Acting Lord," Robb corrected. Theon laughed. "Same thing, if you ask me." Robb looked toward the training yard where young Bran once practiced climbing before his fall. Everything felt different now. Childhood was fading fast. "Do you think they respect me?" Robb asked quietly. Theon shrugged. "They respect strength. Show it, and they will follow." And if I fail, Theon's smile faded a little. Then they will remember you were young. Robb clenched his jaw. Failure was not an option. Later that afternoon, a rider arrived from the west. His horse was tired, covered in foam. The man looked shaken. He was brought straight to Robb. "My lord," the rider said, kneeling, "Lannister soldiers were seen near the Riverlands, villages burned. They claim it is bandits, but the armor was red and gold." Catelyn stepped forward sharply. The Riverlands, that was her homeland. Robb felt anger burn inside him. This was not random, this was pressure. The Lannisters were testing borders, pushing slowly, seeing who would react. "How many men?" Robb asked. "Not many, small groups, but organized." Robb walked toward the window again. He could see the northern fields stretching far beyond. Peaceful, quiet. For now. "They want us to stay still," Robb said slowly. "They want to see if we are afraid." Catelyn's voice trembled slightly. "My father's lands are in danger." Robb turned to her. In that moment, he was not just a son. He was a leader. "Then we will not stay silent." He called for Maester Lewin. "Send ravens to every northern house. They are to prepare their men and supplies, quietly but quickly, and to River Run." Catelyn asked. Robb nodded. Catelyn asked. Robb nodded. "Tell them the North stands with them." The decision felt big, bigger than anything he had done before. As night fell again, Robb stood alone on the walls of Winterfell. The cold wind hit his face, but he did not move. Somewhere in the south, powerful men believed they were playing a careful game. But they forgot something. Wolves do not play games when their family is threatened. They hunt. And Robb Stark was beginning to understand what it truly meant to be a wolf. The ravens had flown. There was no turning back now. Within days, the response from the north began to arrive. Riders came through the gates of Winterfell, one after another, bringing messages sealed with the sigils of ancient houses. House Umber would send 2,000 men. House Karstark promised swords and horses. Even the small mountain clans sent word that they would fight if called. Robb stood in the courtyard watching the first group of soldiers arrive. The sound of boots against stone echoed through the cold air. These were not boys. These were hardened men with scars on their faces and steel in their eyes, and they were here because of him. Catelyn joined him quietly. "They are answering you." Robb kept his eyes forward. "They are answering you." Robb kept his eyes forward. "They are answering the North." But inside, he felt the weight grow heavier. That evening, another rider arrived, this one from the south, wearing the colors of House Tully. His horse stumbled as he dismounted. "They've attacked openly now," the man said, breathing hard. "Lannister forces raided villages near River Run. They say they are hunting rebels, but they burn everything in their path." Catelyn closed her eyes for a moment. "My father." Catelyn closed her eyes for a moment. "My father." "The castle still stands, my lady," the rider assured. "But they are surrounded by fear." Robb's hands slowly formed into fists. Tywin Lannister was no fool. He was pushing the Riverlands, knowing it would pull the North into action. He was forcing their hand. "They want us angry," Robb said quietly. "They want us to rush south without planning." The great Onwimber, who had just entered the hall, gave a rough laugh. "And why shouldn't we? Let us march and crush them." Some of the lords nodded. Robb turned to face them. His voice was calm but stronger now. "If we rush blindly, we fight on their terms, on southern ground, against southern alliances." He walked toward the large map laid across the table. Wooden markers showed the north, the Riverlands, and the Westerlands. "They expect a young lord to make a foolish move," Robb continued. "They expect anger." Lord Karstark studied him carefully. "So what do you suggest?" Robb moved a marker slightly north of the Riverlands. "We split our strength." The room grew still. We send a strong force to protect River Run, but we also send fast riders west to threaten their lands. If they want war, they will have to defend their own homes." The Grey John's eyes widened, then slowly a grin spread across his face. "You would strike at the lion's den." "Not strike," Robb corrected. "Threaten. Make them divide their armies." Catelyn watched her son closely. He was thinking like a commander now, not just reacting. "But who will lead?" Lord Karstark asked. The silence that followed was heavy. Robb knew the answer before anyone spoke. "I will." Catelyn's breath caught. "Robb, if I stay here while others bleed, I lose their respect," he said gently but firmly. "If I lead them, they fight harder." The Great John stepped forward. "You are brave, boy. I will ride with you." "I am not a boy," Robb replied, meeting his eyes without fear. For a long moment, the two stared at each other. Then the Great John knelt. "My king in the north," he said suddenly. The words hit the room like thunder. Catelyn's eyes widened. Lord Karstark stiffened. The other lords looked at one another. Robb felt his heart slam against his chest. "No," he said quickly. "My father still lives. I rule only in his name." But the Great John did not rise. The South plays dirty games. They arrest honorable men and call it justice. If the lions harm Ned Stark, his voice grew darker. The North will need its own king. The idea was dangerous, treasonous, but it was also powerful. Robb stepped forward and helped the Great John rise. "We are not declaring kings today. We are protecting our people." Still, the seed had been planted. Later that night, Robb stood alone in the Godswood. Snow rested softly on the branches of the weirwood tree. The red eyes carved into its trunk seemed to watch him. "I never wanted this," he whispered. He thought of his father walking into King's Landing, surrounded by enemies who smiled with false kindness. He thought of his mother's worried face, of Bran lying broken, of Arya and Sansa far away. The North depended on him. A wolf howled in the distance. Robb lifted his head. The sound did not feel lonely. It felt like a call. The next morning, Winterfell's gates opened wide. Thousands of northern soldiers began to march out, their banners waving in the cold wind. The direwolf of Stark flew proudly above them. Robb rode at the front, wearing armor that felt heavier than anything he had ever worn before. Greywind ran beside his horse, silent and alert. As they crossed the bridge and left Winterfell behind, Robb did not look back. Because once a wolf leaves his den for war, he either returns stronger or he does not return at all. The march south was long and cold, but the Northern Army did not complain. They were used to harsh winds and frozen ground. What they were not used to was uncertainty. Every man knew this was no simple raid. This was the beginning of something that could change the Seven Kingdoms forever. Robb Stark rode at the front, his armor shining under the pale sun. Greywind moved like a shadow beside him, silent but watchful. The direwolf's presence alone made soldiers stand taller. It felt like the old gods themselves were walking with them. Scouts returned on the third day with troubling news. "Lannister forces have split," one scout reported. "Sir Jaime Lannister leads a strong host near River Run. Tywin Lannister camps farther south, near the Trident." At the name Jaime, some soldiers muttered angrily. The Kingslayer, a dangerous warrior with a golden sword, hand and too much pride. Robb gathered his lords inside a large tent that night. A map lay across the table, lit by flickering candlelight. "If we attack Tywin directly, we face his full strength," Lord Karstark said. "He has more men." "And if we face Jaime?" asked the Great John. Robb studied the map carefully. "Jaime is bold. He believes we will defend River Run openly. He wants us to rush into his trap," Catelyn said quietly from the side. She had insisted on riding with the army. She did not trust the South, and she trusted her son even less to face it alone. Robb nodded. So we do not rush. The tent grew quiet. We divide our army, Robb continued. Half will march openly toward Tywin. They will make noise. Let him believe our full strength stands before him. And the other half? The great Jon asked, leaning forward. Robb's eyes sharpened. The other half rides fast and silent at night. We strike Jaime unexpectedly. A slow smile spread across Lord Karstark's face. You would trap the lion. I would capture him, Robb corrected. The room went silent again. Capture? Catelyn repeated softly. If Jaime Lannister falls into our hands, Tywin loses his strongest sword, the Lannisters lose face, and we gain leverage. The plan was risky. Splitting their forces meant danger, but it also meant surprise. The Greyjohn slammed his fist on the table. I like it. By dawn, the northern army moved in two directions. Robb rode with the smaller, faster force. They traveled through forests and crossed shallow rivers under moonlight. Fires were forbidden. Voices were low. Even the horses seemed to sense the tension. On the fifth night, scouts returned with urgent whispers. Yami's camp is 2 miles ahead. They are confident. They do not expect attack. Robb felt his heart race, but his face stayed calm. This was the moment. He looked at the men around him, warriors who had followed him without question. Some were twice his age. Some had children waiting at home. If we succeed, he said quietly, we protect our families. If we fail, no one finished the sentence. Grey Wind growled softly, as if sensing the coming blood. The attack began just before dawn. Northern horns echoed through the trees. Arrows flew first, striking guards before they could shout warnings. Then the Stark soldiers charged, their battle cries shaking the quiet morning air. For the north, chaos exploded inside the Lannister camp. Men stumbled out of tents, grabbing swords and shields. Fires spread quickly. Robb rode straight through the confusion, cutting down a soldier who blocked his path. He had trained for years, but this was real battle now. Steel clashed against steel. Blood stained the ground. Then he saw him. Jaime Lannister stood near the center of the camp, golden armor shining even in the smoke. He moved like a dancer, his sword flashing with deadly skill. 2 northern men fell before him in seconds. Robb felt anger rise. "That's him!" someone shouted. Jaime turned, spotting the direwolf first. His eyes narrowed when he saw Robb. "So the boy leads the wolves," Jaime called mockingly. Robb did not answer. He charged. Their swords met with a loud clang. Jaime was strong, faster than Robb expected. Every strike carried confidence. "You should be at home playing Lord," Jaime taunted as their blades locked. "And you should not have burned my mother's lands," Robb replied through clenched teeth. Jaime laughed, but the sound faded when Grey Wind lunged from the side. The direwolf knocked Jaime off balance. Robb seized the moment, striking hard. Jaime's sword flew from his hand. Within seconds, northern soldiers surrounded him. Jaime Lannister fell to one knee, breathing heavily but still smiling slightly. "Well done," he said calmly. "You've won a battle." Robb dismounted slowly and stood before him. "No," he said quietly. "I've won something more valuable." He looked at his men. "Take him alive." Chains were brought. The Kingslayer was bound. As the sun rose fully, the northern banners stood tall over a defeated Lannister camp. Robb Stark had done the impossible. He had captured the lion. But far to the south, Tywin Lannister would soon hear the news. And when a lion is wounded, he does not retreat. He prepares to destroy everything in his path. The news spread like wildfire. Jaime Lannister has been captured. Northern soldiers repeated it with pride. Some laughed in disbelief. Others stared at the golden prisoner as if he were a myth brought down from a story. Jaime Lannister, the Kingslayer, sat bound in chains beneath a guarded tent. Even as a prisoner, he looked calm. Almost amused, Robb stood outside the tent, watching the sunrise. He should have felt only victory. Instead, he felt something else. Pressure. Catelyn approached him quietly. "You've done what no one thought possible." Robb nodded slightly. "Now Tywin will do what everyone fears." As if summoned by those words, a rider arrived before noon. His horse was near collapse. "My lord," the rider gasped, "Tywin Lannister marches north with full force, 20,000 men, heavy cavalry, siege weapons." The words hit like a hammer. 20,000. The northern army was strong, but not that strong, not in open field. Inside the command tent, the lords gathered quickly. "We should fall back," one suggested. "Return north, force him to chase us into harsher lands, and abandon the riverlands." Lord Karstark snapped. "He will crush us if we meet him head-on," another argued. Voices rose, tempers flared. Robb remained silent at first, staring at the map again. Tywin was experienced, ruthless. He would not charge blindly. He would move carefully, crushing villages along the way to weaken morale. "He wants us angry," Robb said finally. The room quieted. "He wants revenge for Jaime. He wants us to attack him in open ground where his numbers matter." The Great John crossed his arms. "Then what do you suggest, my lord?" Robb's eyes shifted slowly toward Riverrun on the map. "We force him to move where we choose." Catelyn leaned closer. "How?" "We send word to Riverrun to strengthen their defenses. We hold Jaime close and spread rumors that we are marching north." "Retreat," Lord Karstark frowned. "Yes," Robb said calmly. "We make him believe we fear him." Some lords looked uncomfortable. Robb continued, "Tywin Lannister is proud. If he believes we run, he will chase. He will stretch his supply lines. His men will grow tired." "And then?" the Great Non asked, a slow grin forming. "Then we strike where he does not expect it." Later that evening, Robb visited Jaime's tent. The guards stepped aside. Jaime sat comfortably despite the chains. "Come to gloat?" he asked with a faint smile. Robb shook his head. "No." Jaime studied him carefully. "You're smarter than your father." The comment felt like both insult and compliment. "My father is honorable," Robb replied. "And that is why he will lose in King's Landing," Jaime said bluntly. The words burned. Robb stepped closer. "You speak boldly for a prisoner." Jaime leaned back. "You captured me. That was clever. But my father does not panic. He destroys." "I know," Robb answered quietly. "That is why I will not fight him the way he wants." For the first time, Jaime's smile faded slightly. "You think you can outplay Tywin Lannister?" "I don't need to outplay him," Robb said. "I just need to make him angry." Outside, horns suddenly sounded. Robb stepped out quickly. Another rider approached, this one carrying a dire message. "My lord, word from King's Landing." Catelyn rushed forward. "What news?" The rider hesitated, his face pale. "They say Lord Eddard Stark has been arrested for treason." The world seemed to stop. Robb felt the air leave his lungs. "Treason? They claim he plotted against the crown." Catelyn staggered slightly but held herself strong. "That is a lie. Everyone knew it was a lie." The tent filled with silence, heavier than any before. The Great John's voice broke it. "If they harm Ned Stark." "They already have," Robb said, his voice colder than winter itself. His hands trembled slightly, but not from fear, from fury. This was no longer about protecting the Riverlands. This was personal. He looked around at the gathered lords. "They think they can chain a wolf and call it justice," Robb said slowly. "They think the North will bow." His eyes hardened in a way Catelyn had never seen before. "They are wrong." Lord Karstark stepped forward. "What are your orders?" Robb took a long breath. "Prepare the men. We move sooner than planned." Catelyn grabbed his arm gently. "Robb, think carefully." "I am thinking." he said quietly. If my father dies in chains, the realm changes forever. The Gratian suddenly dropped to one knee again. The king in the north, he declared loudly. This time, more voices joined. The king in the north. The chant grew stronger. Robb stood frozen for a moment. King, he had never wanted a crown. But if the South had chosen betrayal, then the North would choose its own path. Far to the south, in the halls of power, men believed they were breaking House Stark. They did not understand. Wolves do not break. They become something more dangerous. And Robb Stark was no longer just a son protecting his father. He was becoming a king ready for war. The chant would not stop. The king in the north. The king in the north. The king in the north. It echoed across the camp like rolling thunder. Northern swords lifted into the air. Shields struck against armor. The sound was powerful, wild, and unstoppable. Robb stood in the center of it all, feeling the weight of those words pressed down on him. King. He had only wanted to defend his father. Now the North was offering him a crown made of war and blood. Catelyn stepped beside him, her face pale but proud. If you refuse them now, she whispered softly, they may lose heart. They need something to believe in. Robb looked at the men kneeling before him. These were not southern courtiers playing games. These were hard men of snow and steel. They did not kneel easily. If he accepted, there was no going back. If he refused, he might lose their fire. Slowly, Robb raised his hand. The chanting faded. I did not ask for this, he began, his voice steady but heavy. I did not seek a crown. The men watched him closely. But my father has been imprisoned by those who lie and call it justice. The Lannisters burn our lands and think we will bow. His voice grew stronger. If the South no longer protects us, if the Iron Throne no longer stands for honor, then the North must stand for itself. The soldiers roared in approval. Robb took a deep breath. I will not kneel to false kings. The Gratian rose first, the king in the north. This time, Robb did not stop them. He let the titles settle over him like armor. But inside, he felt something change. Not pride. Responsibility. That night, he sat alone in his tent, staring at his sword resting across his knees. The camp outside celebrated, but he did not feel like celebrating. There was another knock at the entrance. Enter, Robb said. Jaime Lannister was brought in under heavy guard. Chains rattled as he walked. So, Jaime said calmly, studying him, I hear you've been promoted. Robb dismissed the guards to a distance, but kept them close enough to hear. You've heard wrong, Robb replied. I've been burdened. Jaime smirked slightly. Kingship is always a burden. Some simply enjoy pretending it's not. Robb stepped closer. Send a message to your father. Jaime's expression shifted just a little. Oh? Tell him I am willing to exchange you for my father. Jaime laughed softly. You think they will trade Ned Stark for me? Yes, Robb answered firmly. Jaime shook his head slowly. You don't understand the game yet. Then help me understand. For the first time, Jaime looked serious. If your father has truly been accused of treason, they will not release him easily. Doing so makes them look weak. Then they will kill him? Robb's voice was dangerously quiet. Jaime did not answer directly. King's Landing is not ruled by logic. It is ruled by fear. The words hit Robb harder than any sword. He turned away for a moment, his jaw tight. If they harm him, Robb said slowly, your life becomes forfeit. Jaime tilted his head slightly. Then I suggest you pray they value me. Outside the tent, another rider arrived at full speed. This time, the news was worse. Robb stepped out to hear it. My lord, King Joffrey has ordered Lord Eddard Stark's execution. The world went silent. Catelyn's face drained of all color. Robb felt something inside him break, not loudly, not wildly, but quietly, like ice cracking beneath deep water. "Is it done?" he asked, barely above a whisper. The rider lowered his head. "Yes." Catelyn gasped softly, covering her mouth. For a moment, Robb did not move. He did not speak. He did not breathe. Then slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes were different now. Not the eyes of a boy, not even the eyes of a new king. They were the eyes of someone who had lost something he could never get back. "They killed him publicly," the rider continued weakly, in front of the crowd. The great John cursed loudly. Others shouted in rage, but Robb remained still. Finally, he spoke. "Bring Jaime Lannister." Jaime was dragged forward again. When he saw Robb's face, even he understood something had changed. "They've done it, haven't they?" Jaime asked quietly. Robb nodded once. "You lost your father." "Yes." A heavy silence passed between them. "You should kill me now," Jaime said after a moment. Robb's voice was calm. Too calm. "No." Jaime looked surprised. "You are more useful alive," Robb said coldly. "Your life now represents every drop of Stark blood spilled." He turned to his lords. "We do not fight for revenge alone." His voice rose, strong and clear. "We fight for justice, for the North, for every family that believes in honor." He mounted his horse slowly. "Send word across the land," Robb commanded. "The North is no longer part of the Seven Kingdoms." Gasps spread through the camp. "We are an independent kingdom." The great John grinned fiercely. "And I," Robb finished, his voice carrying over thousands of soldiers, "am your king in the North." The soldiers erupted in thunderous cheers. But far to the south, in golden halls filled with lions, Tywin Lannister would soon hear that the wolf had not only survived, he had declared himself king, and the war had just become unstoppable. The crown was invisible, but Robb could feel it every second. King in the North. The words had fire in them. They gave strength to his soldiers. They gave hope to the Riverlands. But they also painted a target on his back. By morning, the camp had changed. The men stood straighter. The banners flew higher. This was no longer a rebellion. It was a new kingdom at war. Inside the war tent, Robb studied the map again. Now everything looked different. Before, he had been fighting to defend his father. Now he was fighting to defend a crown and the future of the North. "Tywin will not ignore this," Lord Karstark said. "No," Robb agreed. "He will try to crush us quickly, before other houses consider joining us." Catelyn stood near the table. Grief still rested on her face, but she held herself strong. "You must win not just battles," she said quietly. "You must win loyalty." Robb nodded. "The Riverlords must see that we protect them better than the Iron Throne ever did." A scout rushed in suddenly. "My king," he said quickly, still not used to the title. "Tywin's forces are moving toward Harrenhal." Harrenhal, the massive, cursed castle near the Trident. A strong position. "Difficult to attack. He wants us to face him there," the great John growled. "Those walls are thick as mountains." Robb thought carefully. Tywin was digging in, waiting for Robb to make a mistake. "He expects me to attack directly," Robb said slowly, "to prove myself." "And you won't?" Lord Karstark asked. Robb shook his head. "No, I will starve him instead." The lords exchanged looks. "We cut his supply lines," Robb continued. "Strike his foraging parties. Burn the roads behind him. Let him sit in his giant castle with empty stomachs." A slow smile spread across the great John's face. "You fight like the North. Patient. Cold. That is exactly what we are," Robb replied. Over the next weeks, the war became a game of shadows. Northern riders attacked small Lannister groups at night. Wagons carrying food mysteriously vanished. Bridges collapsed. Messengers disappeared before reaching Harrenhal. Tywin Lannister remained inside the massive fortress, but his frustration grew. One evening, another message arrived, this time from the south, but not from King's Landing. "My king," the messenger said, kneeling. Stannis Baratheon has declared himself the rightful king. Renly Baratheon also claims the throne. Robb exhaled slowly. The South was tearing itself apart. So the lions fight stags now, the Great John laughed. Yes, Robb said quietly, and while they fight, we grow stronger. But war was never simple. That same night, a group of river lords requested a private meeting. My king, one of them began carefully, we are grateful for your protection, but some fear this war will destroy our lands completely. Robb listened without anger. You want peace, he said. We want survival. Robb understood. Not everyone cared about crowns or honor. They cared about their families. If I bend the knee now, Robb said calmly, the Lannisters will punish you worse. They will make examples of those who supported me. Silence filled the tent. I promise you this, Robb continued. The North does not abandon its allies. The river lords slowly nodded. After they left, Catelyn approached him. You handled that well. I am learning, Robb said quietly. But inside, doubt still lived. Later that night, Robb visited Jaime again. The Kingslayer sat calmly as always. You look tired, Jaime observed. I am, Robb admitted. Being king suits you less than being a warrior. Robb smirked faintly. And being a prisoner suits you too well. Jaime shrugged slightly. You think this ends with Tywin starving? He is not a man who waits forever. What will he do? Robb asked directly. Jaime's eyes sharpened. He will find your weakness. Robb didn't answer immediately. My sisters, he said finally. Jaime's silence confirmed it. King's Landing still held Sansa. Arya's fate was uncertain. Tywin had power there. War was not just fought with swords. It was fought with hostages. The next morning, terrible news arrived again. Renly Baratheon is dead, the messenger reported. Killed by shadow, some say. The camp buzzed with rumors. Stannis Baratheon was marching on King's Landing. The South was in chaos. Robb stared at the map once more. If Stannis attacked the capital, Tywin might leave Harrenhal to defend it, which meant movement, which meant opportunity. Prepare the men, Robb said quietly. The Great John grinned. Another battle? Yes, Robb replied, but this time we do not just hurt the lion. His eyes hardened. We break him. Far away, Tywin Lannister received word of Stannis marching, and for the first time since the war began, the lion was forced to move. The wolf had waited patiently. Now the hunt would begin again. The moment Robb had been waiting for finally came. Scouts rode through the night, breathless and covered in dust. My king, one said urgently, Tywin Lannister has left Harrenhal. He marches south toward King's Landing. Stannis Baratheon is attacking the capital. Robb stood still for a second, letting the words settle. Tywin was moving. The lion had stepped out of his stone den. Around him, his lords waited for orders. This is our chance, the Great John said, eyes burning with excitement. We strike his rear. Cut him apart while he moves. Robb nodded slowly. Yes, but not blindly. He turned to the map again. Tywin's army was large, but stretched thin now. Moving quickly to defend King's Landing meant long supply lines and tired men. If we attack at the right place, Robb said carefully, we split his forces before he reaches the city. Catelyn studied her son's face. He looked older now, harder, but still thoughtful. And Jaime? She asked quietly. Robb glanced toward the guarded tent. Jaime remained their most valuable piece. He rides with us, Robb said. Well guarded. The Great John laughed loudly. The lion watches his own pride fall. By sunrise, the northern army was moving again, fast, silent, deadly. They caught Tywin's forces near a narrow crossing by the river. The ground was uneven, muddy from recent rain, perfect for chaos. Robb stood at the front of his army, grey wind at his side. He could see the Lannister banners in the distance, red and gold shining under the cloudy sky. "Remember," Robb said loudly to his men, "we do not fight for revenge alone. We fight for the North, for our freedom." The soldiers roared. Then the horn sounded. The battle exploded like thunder. Northern cavalry slammed into the Lannister flank, catching them unprepared. Arrows rained from hidden positions in the trees. The river crossing became a trap of mud and steel. Robb rode straight into the thick of it. His sword moved fast, cutting through red cloaks. He no longer hesitated. War had shaped him. Across the field, Tywin Lannister watched from horseback, his face cold and controlled. Even in chaos, he remained steady. Their eyes met for a brief moment across the battlefield. Wolf and lion. Tywin quickly began reorganizing his men, barking orders. His discipline was impressive. The Lannisters did not break easily, but Robb had planned for that. A second wave of northern soldiers struck from behind, cutting off Tywin's retreat path. For the first time, real pressure showed on the Lannister lines. The battle lasted hours. Blood soaked into the riverbanks. Steel rang endlessly. Finally, as the sun began to lower, Tywin realized he could not win this engagement without risking total destruction. He ordered a retreat south, abandoning wagons, abandoning ground. The northern soldiers roared in victory as the Lannister banners pulled back. Robb did not chase recklessly. He raised his sword high. "Hold!" The horns echoed, and the North obeyed. When the dust settled, the field belonged to the wolves. Tywin had escaped, but barely. His march to King's Landing was delayed. His army weakened. Robb rode slowly through the battlefield afterward, looking at the cost of victory. Fallen men from both sides lay scattered. War was never clean. The Great John approached, breathing heavily, but grinning. "We bloodied the lion well." "Yes," Robb said quietly, "but he still lives." Later that evening, as fires burned across the camp, Robb stood alone by the river. He had won battles. He had declared independence. He had forced Tywin Lannister to retreat. But the war was not over. A rider arrived under white flag before midnight. He carried news from King's Landing. "Stannis Baratheon's attack failed," the messenger said. "The Lannisters and their allies held the city." Robb closed his eyes briefly. Tywin would now return stronger. The South would unite again, under Lannister control. The war had entered a new phase. Catelyn joined him at the riverbank. "You've done what many thought impossible," she said softly. "You've proven the North cannot be bullied." Robb stared at the dark water. "Father believed in honor above all," he said quietly. "I believed it too." "And now?" Catelyn asked. "Now I believe in survival." He turned toward the camp where thousands of northern soldiers rested under Stark banners. "I will protect them," Robb said firmly, "no matter what it costs." The wind moved through the trees like a whisper from the old gods. The North stood independent. The lion had been wounded, but the game was far from over. Because in the world of thrones and crowns, victories were only moments. And survival required more than courage. It required sacrifice. Robb Stark, king in the North, now understood that fully. The boy who once ran through Winterfell's courtyard was gone. In his place stood a king forged by loss, battle, and fire. And the realm would never be the same again.